Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Welcome to Parent Conversations. Today we are talking about designing your lives for back to school success. And it's kind of, there's not going to be so much of speech is the only word I can think of. It's going to be more of maybe a panel. We'd like everybody's input on your ideas, what's worked for your family, what worked for you maybe when you were in school. And before we get started, I'm going to share a survey that we put out to parents, and we asked them 5 questions, and I'll go ahead and read the 5 questions that we asked, and we'll take them one at a time and talk about them, and I will share with you some of the ideas that the parents gave us in that survey. So
so Megan,
yeah,
so just the way that we actually promoted this is a parent panel featuring you guys. So you guys are the panel, and then we're going to we'll bring in also anything that was contributed through the survey. But yes, today's parent conversations is all about you guys contributing what has worked for you and sharing ideas. And so, yeah, we'll take those questions one at a time and we'll discuss them.
Yep. And Shirley and I are just kind of like facilitators today. So interrupt us because nobody's really presenting. So, and I'm taking roll to see who's here. So let me get that down really fast. All right, fine. And so first question was, maybe I can share my screen. Nah, I won't share my screen. I'll just read it. Okay, first question. What do you do to help your kids prepare for going back to school and setting them up for success? It's kind of a general question. I'm gonna read it one more time. What do you do to help your kids prepare for going back to school and set them up for success? I'll start by throwing something out. You know, I have 4 daughters. They're all grown now, but one of the funnest things that they enjoyed was back to school shopping. What girl doesn't like to go back to school shopping? So that might not be as much of a educational setup, but definitely an emotional, mental one for girls. So make sure that they've got, you know, within a budget, some nice new things to start the school year with. I'd love to hear some more input. Shirley, what did you do with your kids?
So this question is probably the reason we're having this today, because I read something several weeks ago, probably even anyway, and I just thought it was really, really clever. And I thought, you know what, there are other ideas out there. So the thing that I read was one mother that had a kindergartner, and she said that she was having her kindergartner eat lunch. So they would pack their lunch together. They would pack the school lunch, and then he would sit down and eat the school lunch out of the lunchbox, just to make sure that he was comfortable with that he could open the lunchbox, that he knew how to open all of the, you know, little baggies and just whatever it was that they were using. They wanted to make sure that he was comfortable with that, and that this wasn't a new and somewhat, you know, frustrating experience for him. I just had a thought, and I'm going to go ahead and share this. It's a little bit, I won't tell you which child. Anyone who knows me will probably know, just from the from where they're at. But this was something, I guess you can call it a parent fail on my end, when I was, you know, I had a brand new young child. Now realize I was a single mother at the time, and had, you know, this little, he was 18 months old when I became a single parent. And so he hadn't really been around, you know, men and boys, you know, going to the bathroom and whatnot. And anyway, I got on that very first day, he was super excited for school. And on that very first day, I got a call from the office, and they said, "Hey, can you bring some dry clothes? we're going to call him Pete. Okay. Pete had a little accident. And so I was like, oh, sure. I jumped in my car. I ran over the dry clothes. We changed them. Everything was great. I came home the next day. I got a call from the office saying, hey, could you bring over some dry clothes? Pete had a little accident. And I was like, okay, this is weird because he had never had trouble with potty training. So anyway, finally on the third day of this happening, and the principal said, she kind of called me in first and said, is he worried about school or anything? I was like, no, he loves school. He was so excited to go. He loves school. I have no idea what's going on. And so then I went in to help him, with, change his clothes and stuff. And, I said, hey, how are things going? How do you like school? Oh, I love school. Oh, I love my teacher. I mean, everything was very positive, and then he said, there's just one thing, Mom. He said, so how do you go to the bathroom when those things that aren't, anyway, I don't remember exactly now how he asked it, but he didn't know how to use the urinals. And it had never occurred to me. I mean, this poor little child was, all of a sudden there were no toilets, and he was supposed to go to the bathroom and he didn't know how. So he was trying to use them the way, so that night, as his older brother came home, I said, Nick, we all know who the oldest is in the family. I said, Nick, you have an assignment tonight. You need to teach your little brother how this works, and again, that was just something that, first of all, I couldn't teach him. But secondly, I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't even thought about what's going to be different. What are the little things throughout his day that are going to be new? And will he know how to handle that? So, we managed, we got 3 days in and life went perfect from then on out.
Glad to hear that.
It was very, very confusing for all of us because nobody knew what was going on, but clearly something was going on.
Right.
So what are the things that might be new for your kids, whether they're a kindergartner or maybe they're going into junior high. And now all of a sudden, they're used to, this has been one classroom, one teacher, and now they're going to be multiple classrooms, multiple teachers. What can we do to set them up for success in that and to prepare them for the change?
We're not uncomfortable with silence, so we'll just sit here and let you guys think about it for a minute. You can put it in the chat. I'd be happy to read that if you have something that you want to say. All right, I will, while you're thinking, I'm going to go ahead and look at the survey and share just a couple of things that came from the survey. Let's see. Find the right place to read from. Of course, now it's going to load. Okay, one parent said to make sure that they have the correct school supplies. And I talked about this last week in going back to school on a budget. Yes, it's important to make sure that you've got the right school supplies. That doesn't mean you have to go out and buy all new. Just take stock of what you have. I could guarantee you that something from last year probably didn't get used. And make sure that if there is something specific that a teacher wants you to have, that you get that information from the teacher before you go school shopping, and then you can get it, because sometimes there is something that teachers absolutely want the kids to have. Another comment that I made last week was to shop after Labor Day. Prices dropped significantly, so that we're kind of that just a little budgeting tip in there, thrown in there with the preparing your kids. Another parent said she likes them to get emotionally ready. We talked about that a little bit. Likes getting to know their classmates and their teacher. And then she says she gives them a pep talk. I'll always be here for you, she says. And then recentering so that they can go with new hope and then courage for a new year. That's a good idea. Pep talks, kind of a back to school meeting with your kids, so to speak. And it's probably good to have those every once in a while anyway. But yeah, I'm going to encourage everybody to go to back to school night. That can kind of, as I'm going to say that word wrong if I try and say that word, assuage, is that how you say it? Their fears of going back to school. Sometimes when they get to back to school night, they realize, hey, I have somebody in my class that I already know. And that's one way to figure out who is in your class, is to show up to back to school night. And there's going to be some fun back to school night activities this year. We've got some messages in the chat. Shirley, do you want to read them or do you want me to read them?
Yeah, I'll go ahead with that. So Alex said, I'm not sure how to teach school behavior or if that's taught in school. I love that. And you know what? The thought that came to my mind with that is, just like, okay, on Zoom meetings, like I can remember when we did the youth leadership, it was part of the agenda was to go over Zoom etiquette. Let's talk about, what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable. That would be very appropriate with your kids to have a conversation on, what's school etiquette. Okay, here are some things that might be different. Here are some situations that you might encounter. Here's an appropriate way. And one thought that came to my mind when I read that, how about a back to school charades? Play charades with the kids and maybe, identify some situations that that they're going to, I guess it would almost be charades in reverse. Write down some situations that your kids might encounter and let them act that out. So anyway, that was just a thought that I had. Emily points out that being emotionally ready, there are a lot of books with starting school. And that's absolutely true. Emily, if you're aware of what some of those are, if you'd like to put that in the chat, that would be great. Emily is a teacher, so she has lots of experience with that. And she says the week before school, which is starting now for many people, start getting back into a routine. Very good point. This includes bedtime and wake up times. During the summer, we tend to get lax. It's summer, hey, we can stay up a little later. We've, family vacations and some of the ordinary rules don't really apply. But as we get back into, don't wait until, school's in to go, okay, here's the bedtime. And all of a sudden everything changes. Start building back into that routine. Really good point, Emily. I would love to have you guys share these yourselves if you want to go on unmute. And if you don't, then I will, we'll keep reading them. But would any of you like to share? Madeline, do you want to share yours?
Sure, I can share.
Thank you.
So just piggybacking on the book idea, I'm a teacher as well, and I've taught 1st through 12th grades. But one of a really cute books for little ones is The Kissing Hand. I would say maybe like 2nd, 3rd grade and younger. It just kind of gives a way to provide comfort for those kids and even maybe do the kissing hand yourself. My son and I have done that. And then First Aid Jitters is a fun one for kids who are a little bit older, even younger ones, any elementary age probably. And then if you're looking for a book on like behaviors and rules, one that I've read with my students is Officer Buckle and Gloria. That was one of my favorite books as a kid, and I always read it to my elementary kids every year. It's just a fun way to talk about the appropriate ways to behave and maybe some not so appropriate ways. I'm trying to remember what else I said. But yeah,
and Madeline, if you wouldn't mind typing those into the chat so everybody can have, can see those and have a record of that, and maybe copy them down.
Okay.
So I see Emily's hand up, and then I also want to get Catherine's comment in here. Catherine, do you want to unmute and share that, or do you want us to share that? Let's actually do Catherine and then Emily. So I'm going to go ahead and share that. Yeah, okay, no problem, Catherine. So Catherine says, for our faith, we have special blessings fathers can give their kids to give them comfort and counsel. So we try to do those as school is starting. And that is such a great idea. I'm also familiar with that and can make such a difference for kids. So excellent suggestion.
Yeah. Hit Emily and then hit me back up. There was Catherine had a message that was up at the top that I'll read after Emily's.
Oh, okay. Emily, go ahead.
I was going to say, so when I was teaching, I was doing 3rd grade and I did a little bit of 4th grade. And what I really loved to do in 3rd grade was we talked about growth mindset. And this is teaching your kids that they don't have to be perfect at everything, and teaching them that, I don't know how to do this yet, that type of stuff. And a really good resource for learning growth mindset is Class Dojo, and that's dojo.com. And they actually have little video clips you can watch with your kids. And they're just like 3-minute video clips. And they do such a great job, presenting these concepts. And I think they're really good for the kids to see before they start school. It goes through like realistic everyday experiences at school as well.
Emily, does that address a bit like junior high, middle school age too?
This is younger, but they do have books for growth mindset for older kids. Okay. And this is free. I just went into the website now and you can sign up with the basic version as a parent or as a student. So you can access these for free.
And Megan, I want to say something to build on that. That is so important. I agree with you, Emily, that having a growth mindset is so important. We actually have in the Discovery Family Adventures, there is an adventure specifically designed for growth mindset. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. There are actually a couple that address this, but the one specifically that comes from an article. We actually designed this adventure around an article. The founder of Spanx, which is a highly successful company for whatever reason. I think women know why. But anyway, she wrote an article once that I read that just really stood out to me. In their home, they celebrated failure, okay, because it was trying. Not that they celebrated failure in that, hey, I failed and I'm going to fail in everything. But rather than asking them, like what did you learn today, and what have you mastered, kind of thing, they said, what did you try today? And how did it go? And she talks in that article about one day coming home, and she was so excited to tell her dad that, that she had failed, not again, because they were celebrating failure necessarily, but because it was okay. She had tried. She had tried out. It was for the school play. And she said she failed miserably. She was awful at it. And she learned that this was not her thing, but she did it. And that's what she could not wait to tell her parents. And what they celebrated is the fact that she tried. And because of that, she said she's never been afraid to fail. And she's tried many, many things and failed. And then she's tried some things and obviously done very, very well. But because she was not afraid to fail, she was able to be, highly successful.
Kids and adults need to learn how to fail well. And be able to move on. So that's fabulous. Yeah.
And to know that it's okay. It's okay to try something, again, I guess showing my failures. Again, an article that I read once talked about in school. And this is another thing to keep in mind. Okay. I was a straight A student and I had to get my straight A's. Okay. And I was really proud of that, that I always got straight A's. But as I look back at it, and I realized that, there were probably times when maybe I took the easier class so that I could get the straight A, because I didn't want to take the more difficult class and end up with a B or a C. And we want to avoid putting our kids in that. And again, my parents didn't do it. That was something that it was, somehow born in me, that I had to, have those straight A's. But I can see where I sometimes avoided the difficult thing because I wanted to maintain my straight A streak. that's not something I'm proud of. That's something that looking back, I wish that I had maybe, taken the harder road, tried new things. And, and I was very involved and I tried a lot of things too, and I tried things that I wasn't really that great at. Going to a small school was helpful because I still got to, I still got to play volleyball, even though I really was not a jumper and couldn't get my little body off the ground. But
I should have played volleyball, but that's another story for another time.
Of course, with cheerleading, I could jump really high, so I don't know why I couldn't jump to spike the ball. But anyway, but yeah, go ahead, Megan.
Oh, okay. Now we've got a guest on here whose name is showing up as iPhone. So if you are brave, text me your first name down in the chat. And she says that she's got a new middle schooler this year and was asking any ideas for junior high because her daughter's kind of nervous and that they're going to go back on back to school night. And as I was reading through the comments, hold on a second, let me see if we've got a name on here. Holly. Okay. Hi, Holly. We have had a number of suggestions on taking your daughter and walking her from class to class, going according to her schedule. That's an excellent idea. Madeline, who was a teacher, said to help them devise a plan on what they're going to do at lunch, who they're going to sit with, what they're going to do if they don't know anybody. That's a really good idea. She says it's a good idea for classes too. If you walk in and you've got a backup idea on what, if I walk into this class and I know nobody, I'm going to go sit, here and I'm going to pull out a book and read it, whatever. I think that's a great idea. And then Madeline named a book, another book on growth mindset called My Fantastic Elastic Brain. So Holly, I hope that answers some questions. I know it's hard.
Megan?
Yeah.
If I could add to that also, so we are working with schools to do a really fun back to school night hunt, which hopefully many of you will get to participate in that with your schools. But one of the schools that has responded is a middle school. And, and the form that I had them fill out, I asked them to list the 5 things that they want their students to be sure that they do at back to school night. And one of the things that she mentioned that, again, I hadn't thought of, she said, make sure that your student knows how to open their locker. So, working with the lock. So again, go through in your mind and with your student, go through, okay, what are they going to face? What things are they going to need? What skills are they going to need to have, right down to opening the locker, because that can be a big thing. Knowing where their classroom is. I love that idea of go to back to school night, or if you can't make it to back to school night, or your school isn't having a back to school night, find the day that they'll let you go to school and walk through the classes so that they know, where they are. Another thing I'm going to throw out there I want you guys to keep in mind, I've had an opportunity to look at all of the SHARP data from across the state. And one of the things that every area is struggling in is commitment to school. So I'm going to encourage you parents, and again, we're putting together a program, and part of what we do is going to help you with that, help with both the parent mindset and the student mindset to build that commitment to school, that commitment to education. I mean, if any of you are homeschoolers, but try to, as you go about whatever it is that you're doing, try to have the kids point out things they like about the school, kind of in a, so that you're indirectly having them identify things that they like, so that commitment to school will grow. As you walk from classroom to classroom, have them point out what's something about this room that we really like. That's a way that's going to kind of, behind the scenes, it helps a child, instead of looking for all the things that they don't like and going, oh man, I don't like that that the desks are, too close or too far away or whatever. Have them identify something about that room that they do like, so that we can grow that commitment to school. So anyway, I'm just going to throw that out there, and we'll be talking, more about that, and you'll be I mean, we are definitely going to be addressing, that very specific issue that we're experiencing statewide. But you as parents you have the most impact to be able to help your kids develop that commitment to school, commitment to education, and help them build that through being positive.
Awesome. I trying to keep an eye on the clock, and oh my goodness, we talked almost half an hour about one question. So I thought we'd kind of move on, and they're probably just going to kind of morph one into the other. But I wanted everybody to know what the questions were in case there was something specific we wanted to hit right on the head. So the next question is, what do you do to set your kids up for a successful morning and off to school send off every morning? So think about that while I read a couple of answers. One parent says they have breakfast, they read the Bible together, and they have a prayer together. She says they also try to make sure they have their clean clothes laid out ahead of time and pack lunches the night before. All excellent ideas. And then someone else said they try not to leave everything until the morning. They have everything ready the night before. Then if something comes up, they can handle it. Okay, one of my pat my back on the parent moments is I always made my kids breakfast. Always. I don't care what time they had to go to school. I made them breakfast. And it wasn't until my oldest was in about high school that I realized most of my kids didn't like breakfast. Nobody ever told me. I'm a big breakfast fan. And so after that, it kind of waned a little bit, but, and then as my kids got into high school, some of them had an early morning religion class before school, a semester or two. And then I started, I actually worked for a school and I had to be at school really early. So the whole breakfast thing just kind of morphed, and kids are different. Here's something you need to remember about send off in the morning. I am a morning person. I wake up, I am happy to be up. I like to exercise in the morning. Shirley, on the other hand, does not.
I'm doing better though. But
Yeah.
I'm a night owl. I will
going to
work.
bed.
Sometimes I'm going to sleep as everybody else is waking up.
Yeah,
That's
and I'll go to bed at 10, and if I don't turn the ringer off on my phone, I have message after message, and I'll be up at 6. And she's still long sleeping. But not every kid's a morning kid. When my youngest was in that early morning religion class, I just had to not speak to her before she got to school, which I worked at. I worked at the high school that she went to, because she was just not a morning person. You have to learn. That's just the fun part of being a parent and learning everybody's different personalities. So anyway, any thoughts on the back to school, the morning of? Anybody want to comment, put something in the chat?
Megan, while they're thinking, I want to comment on this, and it'll be a little roundabout maybe, but one of my favorite, this is a short video clip that as a young mother, I watched over and over, that I really, really loved, showed the concept of, using armor to protect kids. And it's like, we can't send them out into the world, wearing literal armor. Okay. Yeah. We're not going to send them out there with their, with their big heavy metal armor on there. But we can send them out into the world armored. And some of the ways to do that, and I want you to think about, and again, kids may be different. So it might be different for each child, but I think with every child, you can send them out into the world with a hug. And a hug does it has a huge impact. We know that physical touch is, and again, there are some kids that really don't want to be touched, but you know what? Everybody really needs that hug. And those of you that are familiar with the 8 for 8, and Dr. Kane and others have taught, we need, that helps to counter, like even with the social media and the technology and some of all of the stuff that they're getting from that helps to counter that. So, just like Megan was saying, we wouldn't, with breakfast, we wouldn't send our kids out into the world without any food, I guess, unless they don't want it. Let's not send our kids out into the world without their armor on, and that can be very simple, but give them that, hug and a kiss. What are some other things that, the positive words? Let's send them out the door armored for the day, because they're going to get a lot of stuff blasted at them during the day. They're going to get negative comments from other kids, negative looks, difficult challenges. They're going to come across, concepts and homework that they don't understand, and they may tend to feel like a failure. What can we do to build them up so they walk out of that door with their armor on? Any thoughts, ideas?
I have one, if no one else does. I've learned this in couples relationships. It's important for couples to have, I'll call them private jokes, something that each of you can joke around with. And I think that's okay to extend that to your family. If you have some kind of inside joke with your family and maybe some quote that goes with it, hit them with that. If they don't want to hug, because my kids aren't big huggers, I am, hit them with that on the way out the door. Whatever that is, something that's just personalized for your family. Catherine mentioned that they're starting to do some role playing with bullying situations on how to diffuse tension on the playground. That's awesome. Role playing is awesome.
Yes. Okay. Somebody says Melissa shared a good middle school tip. Here we go. I always send my middle schooler with a 3x5 card with their schedule to go in their pocket, so they can check it after every class to know where to go next. I love that. Okay, I'm going to tell you one of my nightmares is, how you have the bad dreams that you have throughout your life. One of mine that I've had throughout my life is, I'm going to school and I don't know where my next class is. And again, having to be the straight A student, that is a nightmare to me, to realize that I don't know where to go for class. So I can't, and then of course, it also is usually at the end of the semester, and I realize I haven't been to class at all because I didn't know where to go. But yeah, help your kids feel comfortable knowing where they belong. I love that, Melissa. Are there any others that we missed up there?
I don't think so. I think we're up on them.
Okay, next question.
The next question that we put in the survey was, what do you do to set your kids up for a successful return from school in the afternoon? And one parent said, I just try to be positive and friendly, ask how their day was. She likes to give them short downtime before she asks them to do chores. Sometimes she says they have to go straight to after school activities. And she actually says she likes that because it doesn't cut into dinner time and bedtime as much. Another parent said quiet time right after school is nice. Then they can chat if they want while decompressing from their day. I think that's a good idea. A little bit of physical and mental de-stress is a good idea. I'm big into yoga, and sometimes you just need to just lay down on the floor and put your feet up on the wall. 15 minutes is like better than a 2-hour nap. So I understand the total mental and physical decompression, and it doesn't have to be very long.
So this is actually another reason that this kind of came about. I have another one of the questions. So when we flew out to Oklahoma recently, well, I guess it would have been last spring because the daughter's been here most of the summer. But anyway, we flew out to see our daughter. And as we walked out of the airport, and it was about lunchtime. So I just thought that, oh, wow, she knows it's lunch and she's just like on the ball. But as we got into the van, then she hands me my little snack. She had a sandwich and drink and some, I can't remember, chips or something. And she handed my husband his, and, so glad you're here. And I was thinking, wow, that was, that's really impressive. She knew that we'd be hungry after traveling. Well, then we headed straight off. It was time to go pick up her little one. So we pulled up to pick up Logan. And as he jumped in the car, she handed him his little snack, and, we talked, and it turns out she has like an hour. It's picking up her kids. She, picks up Logan, then she heads to the middle school, and then she heads to the high school, and she has 3 different schools. But she had with each one of them She had some food there, a little snack, and of course, we were kind of the surprise of the day. And that was fun because we had not told them. She had decided not to tell them. So Grandma and Grandpa being there was a fun surprise as they climbed into the van and saw these unexpected visitors. But she does that every day. She has a snack for them, and then she has that few minutes in between, going to the next school to spend that one-on-one time with them. And I just thought, wow, that was awesome. What other ideas do you guys have for when kids get home?
I think it's important to have a place for their stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, for just because I'm kind of a neat freak and I don't like stuff spread all over the place. But if they have some place to drop their shoes and hang their backpack and a coat, that helps. Staying organized always helps me.
Yep. Well, yeah. And it helps in so many ways because I lived in Korea for a time and they take their shoes off. So we have developed that habit we have always taken our shoes off. But the main reason I continue it is because I know where my shoes are. I remember as a child, every time we left the house, we were all running around. We had 10 kids in our home. And everybody was running around trying to find their shoes. Where did we take the shoes off? And I remember that being such a frustration. So the reason I really love the whole take your shoes off at the door is not even tied so much now to, that Korean tradition that I picked up as I always know where my shoes are. They're at the door. So we have the little closet and yeah, they're at both doors. There's the place to put your shoes. So I love the homes that you go in and maybe not all of us have the space to be able to, to create that, but where there's the hook for each child and, to hang their backpack, their coat, put the shoes. Oh, that
Yeah.
I can just imagine makes such a huge difference. We did not have that at the front door.
And well, that's a lot of shoes at the front door. But Madeline said a routine. Walk in, put your shoes away, put your backpacks and bags and cubbies, sit down for a snack, and then get going on homework. There you go.
Yes.
Anybody else want to?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just anybody else want to comment on that question before we move on to the next one? Shirley, did you have anything else to say?
I was just going to say that's a perfect segue into the next question because I think the next question is homework, isn't it?
Let me go look. Okay.
It's designing for success with homework.
Homework, it says kids' homework space to set them up for success. And two responses I'm going to read. One said have pencils and paper, etc. There, good. And the other one is somewhere they can focus and not get disrupted, but still close enough to be able to ask for help. I like that.
Yep.
Anybody else? This probably wasn't a good idea, but when I was a teenager, I'd spread out on the floor in front of the TV and do my homework.
With the TV on?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Not for everything, but for a lot of stuff, I could be found on my stomach, on the ground, doing homework in front of the TV. So not the best example.
Well, back in the day, we were better at multitasking too, I suppose.
This is true. This is true. Madeline says we have a drawer and a basket that has everything for homework, lined paper, pencils. That's a good idea.
Love that. Really good idea.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. And Madeline sits with her son when he works too, because that's important, I think. Some kids really need to have that parental or teacher figure there. I don't remember being that way. And 3 of my kids were pretty independent as far as working. The youngest one surprised me because she needed somebody there to like bounce ideas off of and guide her. And I wasn't like that. I was very much on my own. I never asked my mom for help, ever. I asked my sisters before I asked my mother. Not that my mom wasn't smart. It just wasn't how I operated. But my youngest did better working with somebody that she could bounce ideas off of. And that went on through college. She was in Virginia and I'm in Utah, and I helped her virtually. I'm a good parent. Okay. And she has her bachelor's and so do I. So we're going to school at the same time. Okay. Let's see. Emily said that in homework folder, when you were a teacher, she found it helpful to label on the side, take home, and the other side, return to school. Ooh. So maybe a place to put things that need to go back to school, because how many kids do we know that do their homework and then don't turn it in? I had one of those too. And then Madeline says she keeps the table where we work as clear as possible, so the only thing in front of him is what he's currently working on. Good. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Great suggestions.
Yeah, I was really shocked when I found out one of my kids was not turning in her completed homework. So back to school spot, put it in that special spot in the backpack to go back to school. Anybody else?
So what you said has triggered a thought, and I'm going to share it. Okay. I don't know that it necessarily goes with this topic, but yes, I actually did have one child that I knew he wasn't turning his homework in, but you know what? I knew he was doing his homework. And this was, right after, he was struggling with some of the stuff that, that happens. Kids have a hard time with divorce and whatever. But this is, and his father would get very angry with me because he's not turning his homework in. And I basically said to him, he's doing his homework. I'm not going to go to school and turn it in for him. And he had to experience the consequence of having not turned it in before he, then decided to turn it in. Now, and even more, so I actually have with another one of my kids, it's actually a different one. But anyway, his whole goal, he wanted to go to BYU. That was his goal. Our whole lives, we're all Cougar fans. He was going to BYU. There was no ifs, ands, and buts about it. But he also, and then he was very smart. All of my children have been blessed. They're very, very smart. Two of them were moved ahead a grade. And this was one of my kids that had moved ahead a grade. He was very, very capable of doing the work. He just chose not to. And quite honestly, he chose not to for a long period of time. And I would very much encourage him. I would say to him many times, and I think a lot of it in some ways was was kind of a rebellion against he was also he had a very controlling, I'll just say it. His father was very controlling. And so I think part of it was a pushback about that, is you cannot make me succeed at school, even though we all know that I'm capable. But it wasn't until the day, all of a sudden he came home one day. And again, I would encourage him. I would say to him, you know what? I'll just use his name. He teaches at Cornell now. So he did just fine. But I would say to him, you know what, Nick, your dad has his degree. I have my degree. You not doing well in school is not going to impact our success in life. It's only going to impact yours. If you choose to keep up this behavior, it's your future that you're impacting. And it's your choice. There's nothing that I can do. I cannot force you to use what we all know that you're capable of doing better. I can't force you to do better, but I want you to understand it's only going to impact your future. And he still chose, to just kind of do, half do it. And then the day it all changed, I will never forget the day he finally walked through the door and he said, you know what, Mom, I don't think my grades are going to be good enough to go to BYU. And I said, you know what, honey, I think you're right. And all of a sudden, everything changed for him. And he got straight A's from that moment to the day he graduated from MIT. He was very capable, and he had been very capable the whole time. But if I had pushed him and ridden him and been on him, he never would have learned that lesson on his own. But he came to it on his own. He did have to go to another university for a year because his grades weren't good enough to get into BYU. So he went to another university for a year, went on a mission, When he came home, he was accepted into BYU, and he ended up graduating from BYU with straight A's, went to MIT, now teach and did his, well, he got both his bachelor's and master's from BYU, and then got his doctorate from MIT, and now teaches at Cornell in Ithaca. But he had to learn it on his own. And it was the hardest thing as a parent. It was the hardest thing to know that he was underperforming his ability. But I had to let him learn that lesson on his own. I knew that if I tried to push him, he would never come to it on his own. He would always be able to just blame me. So anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Setting kids up for success sometimes involves allowing them to fail first. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Anybody want to make any more comments? I want to kind of wrap this up in about 5 to 7 minutes, just so we're not going into the 2 o'clock hour here. If there's nothing else, I'm going to read the last question that we asked parents. So stop me now. Okay. What else do you do to design your home or your schedule to set your kids up for success? I'll just read a couple responses. One parent said that her kids are in a charter school, so they wear uniforms. I totally support uniforms. I think that makes it takes a lot out of the equation as far as competitiveness with kids, and it just makes it easier. You wear this and this is it. She says she also volunteers 30 minutes a week in each classroom so she can get to know the teacher and the students. That's awesome. I used to do that when my kids were little. With older students, I try to know what the assignments are so I can remind and support my student to finish. Good ideas. Another parent said that scheduling is hard for them. They don't have control over most of the things and when they happen. She says they just try and do their best. She tries to be understanding about chores if they had extra practices. Like I'm assuming for like a sporting event or music or something like that. Yeah, I think that's important. I think it's important to give our kids a little bit of grace and be a little bit understanding. Yes, they've got responsibilities at home, sometimes with youth groups, but it's important that they succeed in school, especially if they're trying. And if they've got someplace else they're supposed to be, you might have to really prioritize if there's a assignment due the next day that's really big. You might have to forego something more fun. I remember doing that. Sometimes you just have to take the harder route. Do not what you want to do, but what you have to do. Which includes missing out on sleep as a parent as you stay up to help your kid, type up the paper that's due the next day. I've done that. So.
I know growing up for me, so I grew up on a farm and there was lots and lots of work to do, and we worked and we didn't do a whole lot of play. But I will say, I mean, as I look back at it, so I mean, we worked hard throughout life, but when I think about my high school years, I don't think I really had time for personal chores at home. I mean, between cheer and drill team, I went to a small school, so we did it all. I was on the basketball team and the volleyball team, and I mean, it was go between school activities and the and the church activities with my youth group. When I look back at it, my parents. I think my parents pretty much filled in the rest. They did not have, I mean, all of the chores. And of course there were still, and during the summers, we still moved pipe. And I'm sure they even probably during the winters, I probably got up and fed the calves. I'm sure I had a responsibility there that we helped before school. But I look at it, I think, what, my parents did not require a lot of us when we were in high school because we were involved in so many other things. But the thing is, we learned work ethic prior to that. I mean, I guess prior and through high school, I mean, we still developed a very solid work ethic. But when I look at high school, I am positive that I didn't do a whole lot around the house and the farm because there wasn't time for it. We were never home.
And my upbringing was quite a bit different from yours. I was raised by a single mom, and I was the oldest, and there wasn't a whole lot of money to go around. So as soon as I was old enough, I had a job, and I didn't get to participate in some of the stuff in high school. And looking back, I regret doing that. I should have participated more in high school, and my grades were good. It could have been a little bit better, but I wasn't straight A's. I was a 3.7, I think. It wasn't too bad. But I did learn I have a good work ethic. So there's that. But especially teen years, they're kind of rough with all the activities going on and things. We got to be really patient with our kids and encouraging and help when we can. Anybody have any suggestions? I mean, I'm assuming that most parents here probably don't have high schoolers yet. I could be wrong. And all my kids worked through high school.
Yeah, there are so many. I think the thing maybe to learn from that is that there's more than one way to get to the same, I mean, I would say, yeah, Megan and I both have a very strong work ethic, and we got there a different way. We have different, and each child will be different, and I think that that's important to keep in mind that your kids are, that your kids are different, and we need to accommodate their differences. And I don't know if I can say this, but I guess like what I say with everyone, I mean, the world we live in, everything, it can be different. The only way for you to know what is best for your child, and I say this, I guess, with my faith background, so you can take your faith background and adapt however. But for me, the only way for you guys to know is stay close to your faith. Ask your Heavenly Father. He knows each child. He knows what they need. And I'll tell you, it can be rough when you have, when you have more than one child. If you have two children, you're going to have two. In fact, yesterday I spent the day with my two little twin grandbabies. They had a special day for them, and it was so awesome and amazing. But you know what? Each of those babies, they have different personalities. You can see it already. They're actually, because they were twins, they were preemies, and so they're 8 months old now. So not newborn. But 8 months old, and they have different personalities, and they're going to have different needs. And, they're very much so cute to watch them together and loving each other. And, you can already see that special bond, but you can already see those different personalities. And so I would encourage you to, however it is, whatever, with your faith, look to that faith to find out what it is that you need for each of those children. And don't be afraid to treat them individually as needed. I mean, you definitely want to have the family rules and everyone, you don't want to have a separate set of rules for each child, but you also need to have, each child is unique, when it comes to with my boys, I could have, I could have said no park. Like if they didn't have their homework done, you don't get to go to the park, would have meant nothing to them. My daughter, it would have killed her. Okay, that's what with her thing, you got to have your homework done, then you can go to the park. With the boys, it was TV time and whatever those games are, the games they play. Each child can be different. Don't be afraid to set them up for success in a way that's going to work for them.
Well, I'm going to add one more thing, and then we're going to close down because I've got another meeting coming up soon. But parents, cut yourselves some slack. Do things you need to do to take care of yourself too. Yes, your kids are important, but you've got to do stuff that's going to replenish your bucket in order to keep theirs filled. And it's a full-time job. And some moms and dads who are very involved parents also work full-time. So just be patient with yourselves and do the best you can. And like Shirley says, rely on your faith a lot. So anybody have any final comments before we close out and say thanks again to the Bear River Health Department for the grant that makes this possible? I know I sound like PBS. Back in the day. Oh, I'm dating myself, aren't I? Oh, shoot.
We are very grateful for the grant that makes this possible.
Yeah, yes. Well, thanks for everybody for attending, and we will plan on seeing you next week. We have a guest from the state. Is he at the state level now?
Yes, David Watkins.
From the
Yes,
state
he
health
was.
department.
The next few weeks are going to be really, really important. So please do everything that you can to be here. Invite everyone you know. We're going to be looking at the social development strategy and really how you as parents can be prevention specialists. And I say that in a way, this is not hard. Okay. This is not something that's like, oh, I don't want to be a prevention specialist because it's so hard. We're going to teach you the underlying skills so that it's just part of what you do. It's just part of your parenting. Super, super important the next few weeks. Really encourage you to be here.
All right, everybody have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.